A very good morning to all the students of class 11th political science. And students, as you know, we were doing the first chapter of your book, that is Constitution at Work, and the name of the chapter, the first chapter, is Constitution Why and How. So we had already completed the first part. Today we shall be studying the second part, and the topic would be limitations on the powers of the government. But before I start this topic, let me remind you quickly what we have read and understood in the first part of this chapter. So in that I started with some revision work or your past knowledge, that up to class 10th, what are the concept or the basic structures and features you have understood regarding the topic, that is constitution. It means have you understood that constitution, the concept of constitution, basic structure of constitution, and important features and functions of the constitution. So we had discussed that. So in that I gave you some of the few important definitions, also simple definitions, also explaining you the meaning of constitution with the help of the simple examples from your very local environment. And I also told you a constitution is a written set of laws and some fundamental principles to develop a relationship between the people and the government, which comprises a number of articles or the provisions about the state or a country. Okay. And then after that I started the first topic from your book, that is why do we need a constitution. And before this I had also explained you that what were the topics or what will be the topics and chapters we will be covering in this book. As there is a new revised syllabus, you have to go through it. Okay, so the first topic I had taken was the why do we need a constitution from your book. That is the first topic. It means, I told you, it can also be called the functions or the features of the constitution. I told you if question comes, what are the functions of the constitution or what are the features of the constitution, or a simple question comes, why do we need a constitution, these all three questions will have the same answer. And there are 5 important functions or features are given in the book which we were discussing, and 2 features I had already explained to you. Those were constitution allows coordination and assurance. So we had discussed this first feature or the first function of the constitution, that is constitution allows coordination and assurance. Or we can say the first function of the constitution is to provide a set of basic rules that allows for minimal coordination amongst members of a society. Then after that we had moved to the second important function of the constitution, because why do we need a constitution? So this is a second function of the constitution, is to specify who has the power to make decisions in a society. It decides how the government will be constituted. So this was the second function. So today from this particular topic we are going to start the third function, and you can see here this is part second, and limitations on the powers of the government. This is the third function of the government, basically, that how constitution helps to put limits on the powers of the government, because whatever the government we have elected or whatever the political system is going on in a particular country, but in case of India, if we are a democratic country, we are giving vote and we are electing our own representatives and they are forming the government. So what are the powers or what are the limitations which should be there on the powers of the government? If these powers are, if there is no check and balance on the powers of the government, they can act like a monopoly, they can act like a dictator. So it is also important to put some check or the balance the powers of government, and this is the work done by the constitution. So we will understand by this explanation that why it becomes important that there should be a limitations on the power of the government, okay, through this. So let's see here. But this is clearly not enough. Suppose you decided who has the authority. It means you decide means if you have given a vote to a particular person, you have elected your own representative, and those representatives form the government and they make decisions for you. But those decisions, suppose, or those authority, their government, they are passing such laws which are not good, or you find them unfair or discriminatory in function, and you think that they are not serving good for the society. It prohibits, like it is prohibiting the practicing your religion, they're stopping a person from practicing a particular religion, or they are enjoyed that clothes of a certain color were prohibited, or they are prohibiting or stopping some people of a particular community to stop wearing a particular clothes of a particular color, or that were not free of, they, or some people are restricted where they are not allowed to sing a particular song, or some group is only said that they will serve the other groups, like we used to have other in the previous ancient time, the Varna system, where the Shudras used to serve the other three upper castes. If this is the function done by the government, or the rules regulations are made in such a way, there are a lot of discrimination going in the society in any case. So these are the examples of discrimination, we can say, that government is making such laws which is unfair for the some part of the society, or that government could arrest anyone on any charges, or that any people or a certain skin color would be allowed to draw water, or some people are on the basis of the color of their skin or caste, they are not allowed to take water from the well, which used to happen. We have studied about untouchability in class 6th and 7th, which used to be a part of Indian society in the ancient time, and it is also still prevalent, but at a very low scale now. You would obviously think, so after all these discrimination activities going on in the activities, which are the rules updated by the government, which is leading to so much of discrimination and uh, unbalance in the society, inequality in the society, you will obviously think that laws were unjust and unfair. So the laws which our government is creating are unjust and unfair in the society, and even though they were passed by the government, they had come into existence. Although those are passed by the government, and that government is elected by you have given the vote and you have elected all your representatives, and still they are making such unjust and unfair laws which are not serving the society equally. So what would be your reaction to it? That is why we are talking about the topic limitations. If we have elected a government, it doesn't mean government can do anything. So constitution understands this thing, so it has a very far views, and that is why it has from the very beginning put some limitations on the powers of the government, that what a government can do and what it cannot do. Okay, it has been prohibited by doing some acts. So in detail you can see, so the third function, so what do we understand by the third function? That we said there should be some limitations on the government. It means, so the third function of the constitution is to set some limits on what a government can impose on its citizens. What are the laws which can be imposed by the government on its citizens? So there is some limitations. These limits are fundamental in the sense that government may never transform them, and these limits are fundamental in the sense that government may never transform, and whatever the laws or the power which citizens have got, those powers and those rights cannot be trespassed or crossed or violated by the government. Okay, so these are the powers given to the citizens, and these are in the form of fundamental rights. We talk about the fundamental rights which every citizens have got. If he or she is the citizen of India, we have certain fundamental rights, and even government cannot trespass them or prohibited them or violate those rights of a particular citizen. Those are the ways through which constitution has put some check and balance or limited the power of the government. So this they have explained further in this paragraph. I will read this quickly. Constitution limits the power of the government in many ways. The most common, in many ways the government power has been limited, but the most common way of limiting the power of the government is to specify certain fundamental rights. So the constitution has specified some important powers to the citizen in the form of fundamental rights that allow us to possess as citizens, which no government can ever be allowed to violate, and no government ever can violate those rights of the citizens which has been given by the constitution to each citizen. The exact content and interpretation of the right varies from constitution to constitution, but most constitution will protect the basic cluster of rights. It depends on different countries, different constitutions, but talking about Indian constitution, as this book we are mostly limited to the content or to India. So in this, citizens will be protected from being arrested arbitrarily and for no reason. So here the citizen will be protected. So there is a proper procedure followed if someone has violated the laws or done any crime. So there are proper procedures which the police has to follow, which the court has to follow. It's not the monopoly of anyone that they will catch hold of a person and they will put him behind the jail and they will punish him. So there is a proper procedure for that, where a particular person who is accused of doing any crime is given the right to protect himself. If he is not guilty, he is innocent, he will be given a chance in front of the law to prove himself. Okay, so This is the one basic limitations upon the power of the government. Citizens will normally have the right to have some civil liabilities, right to freedom speech, freedom of conscience, freedom of association, freedom to contract a trade, conduct a trade or business. These are the things which you have studied in your junior classes, that what are the practices, like we can practice the profession which we want, we can propagate any religion we want, we can move freely within the territory of India, we have the right to speech, expression. So these are all the freedom given to the citizens by the constitution, which put some limits on the power of the government. In practice, these rights can be limited during times of national emergency, but these rights, or the fundamental rights of the citizens, which have been given by the appointed by the constitution to a citizen, which protects it from the powers of the government, but it can be limited in the situations like when there is a national emergency. The constitution specifies circumstances, but it is not the choice of any government that whenever they want they can impose emergency. There are certain specified circumstances only under which the emergency can be imposed. That emergency will also be imposed according to the constitution, whatever the specifications are given by the constitution, or the circumstances which can lead to emergency. Okay, so this was all about the third function, that why it is important to put some limits on the power of the government. But in the next part, we'll also understand why it is important to give some power to the government to make few changes in the society which are for the good for everyone. Okay, some quality changes are required. Okay, there are some ill practices or the ill events going on in the society. If we talk about Indian society, we were facing the sati system, we were facing the untouchability. Okay, we face the dominance of male dominated society. There were discrimination with a girl child. Okay, so these were some of the ill practices which were going from many years, okay, in the past. But constitution has given some power to the government, where the government felt it was important for them to interfere and make some laws and provisions to protect our society from these evil activities. So in this we'll try to understand in this particular topic, that is aspirations and goal of the society, because there are some aspiration, dreams, goals, okay, which every citizen expects from a society. They want to have a healthy life, they want to have a good lifestyle, which can be provided by the government through the various provisions of the constitution, because government cannot function on its own, or it cannot take its own decisions. It also has to work according to the laws and provisions and articles of the constitution. That is why we are studying this chapter, constitution and its functions, that how it is so important to function around our country. So we can say this is the fourth function. So in the exam you have to write point wise. So three functions we have discussed of the constitution, which is very important. Now the fourth function is aspirations and goals of the society. So what does the constitution do, where it can fulfill the aspirations, needs and demands and desires of its citizens? So most of the older constitutions limited themselves largely to allocating decision making powers and setting some limits on the government. So if you see the older constitutions before 21st century or before 20th century, so most of the constitution focused that which will be the organs, which will be the authorities which will take decisions, who will have the power to take decisions at various levels of the government, at the various societies. And also the other function was, important functions was how to limit the power of the government by giving some fundamental rights to the citizens. So these two were the major functions and the features of the constitution in the older societies. But now if we talk about the 20th and 21st centuries constitutions like India, okay, we have a 20th and 20th century, our constitution was formed in the 20th century. So if we talk about the Indian constitution, apart from decision making powers and limiting the powers of the government, we have also tried to focus on the third point, and let's study what is the third point, which will lead to the fulfilling of the aspirations and needs and desires of the citizens. So how? It's written here. Finance example also provide an enabling framework for the government to do certain positive things. Now constitution is also making such provisions where government is empowered. A power has been given to the government which it can do to do some positive things, to make, to change, bring change in the society, to transform some things which are not good for the society, to make them healthy, to express the aspirations of the goals of the society. where government can help to express the aspirations and needs and demands of the people of the society. The Indian constitution was particularly innovative in this respect. So in this respect, we can say in the 20th century, Indian constitution has been very innovative, because in the further chapters we will also try to understand why we call this Indian constitution as a living document. We call it a living document because with the change in the time and circumstances and situations, we have the provisions where we make amendments in our constitution. Economic political condition changes, cultural condition changes, we are supposed to, and we can make amendments by following a particular the specific procedure to make changes in the constitution. So with the change in time and with the where we feel that people's need something important change in the society, we make innovations. That is why we are saying Indian constitution was particularly innovative in this respect. Societies with deep intense, there were some deep intense inequalities or evil activities in our system, in our society, we have seen, will not only have set limits on the powers of the government. So although we have put the limits on the government, powers of the government, they will also have the enable the, we need to empower the government also to eradicate those ill activities from the society, okay, so that they can make some positive measures to overcome from some inequalities or deprivation. Whatever activities which are leading to inequalities or deprivation or the imbalance in the society, those bad activities can be eradicated only when we in power give some power to the government. Although we are limiting the power of the government, but also here with the change in time we need to improvise, we need to make some good changes where the government can with empower and make changes in the society for like I have told in the beginning, eradicating the system of sati system, inequalities between the boy and a girl, where we saw man, it's Indian is a man dominated society. Then we talked about untouchability. So all those were removed by various laws and provisions because government was empowered to remove those inequalities and deprivation from our society. Same thing has been explained here. For example, Indian aspires to be a society that is free of caste. We always dream that there should not be any caste discrimination. Okay, so there has been various laws to remove this inequality. In this, our society aspires, the government will have to be enabled to empower, to take all the necessary steps to achieve this goal. So we have empowered our government, where government can take important necessary decisions to eradicate these things and achieve the goal, where to eradicating caste discrimination or class discrimination. In our country like South Africa, which had a deep history of racial, as you know, South Africa had been facing deep history of racial discrimination on the basis of color, white and black. Its new constitution of South Africa has enabled the government. So now this new constitution, which change in the situation and time, this constitution has given the power to the government to make such laws which can eradicate and remove this inequality of racial discrimination on the basis of the color. So this is an example from the other country. In the same, we have seen this change in our Indian society as well. So this is the other function where constitution looks up to the certain aspirations and needs and desires of the people of the society, which only government can achieve if government is empowered to make such laws. Now this is the fifth fundamentality. This is a bit complicated, that is why I have shown you with the help of the diagram. This is the fifth we can say function or feature of the constitution, that what does the constitution do. So four things we have discussed. This is the fifth thing where constitution plays an important role. This is an important function, that constitution gives a fundamental identity of a person. Through constitution we get to know what is the identity of a people or a particular citizen of a country. So what does our constitution do? It gives fundamental identity to its people, we can say. So what are those fundamental identities? One, we have a political identity, we have a moral identity, and we have a national identity. So these three identities are given or provided to a citizen of a country by the constitution, and this is important, especially when we travel outside our country. This means the people as a collective identity come into being only through basic constitution. So if we talk about our collective identity, we are only recognized on the basis of the constitution. When we enable and we accept all the provisions and laws and the fundamental principles of the constitution according to which we as a citizens will be governed, it means we are accepting a collective identity that we are Indians and we will be governed according to the constitution. Okay, it's the same thing here also. It is by agreeing to a basic set of norms about how to should be governed that one forms a collective identity. Then one has many sets of identities, but when we talk apart than collective identity, as a whole we are accepting the constitution. According to the constitution we have to be governed, that is the collective identity. But other than collective identity as a whole, we have some identities, set of identities that exist prior to constitution. Before the constitution we have certain identities. By agreeing to certain basic norms and principles, one constitutes a basic political identity. We also have a political identity. Same thing I'm reading from the book also, as I have shown you in the diagram, that one has many sets of identities that exist prior to constitution, but by agreeing, when we agree to certain basic norms and principles, one constitutes one basic political identity. Okay, this is the first identity. Then second is constitutional norms are overarching framework within which one pursues individual aspirations. Okay, we have some individual aspirations, goals and freedom. Individually as a whole we are a country, collective identity. Okay, and when we accept all the norms and rules and regulations of the constitution, we have a political identity. But as an individual we have some aspirations and goals for our own. These constitute sets authoritative constraints upon what one may or may not. It defines the fundamental values. This shows our fundamental values as an individual that we may not trespass. So the constitution also gives one a moral identity. So we also have a moral identity, that which are will be the norms, conditions and laws which we will not trespass or will not violate. That forms our moral identity. Okay. So with this we come to the first section and the first part of the chapter, where the question can be asked, what are the 5 functions of the constitution? So you will have to mention all these functions which I have discussed in detail, and you can also explain with the help of the various examples which I have given you. Examples will always help you to explain your topics much better. Okay, so always use the examples from the very local environment, because when we talk about the constitution, various laws, we talk about the fundamental rights, we talk about the discrimination, we talk about the ill practices in the society or discrimination or inequalities, everything you will look around, you will observe. And it is important for a student of political science to observe your society. That is why we are studying humanities. Okay, so you have to observe your society, the functions of the society, features of the society, and that will make easy, becomes easy for you to understand these subjects relating to history, geography, civics, or this political science. Okay, so with this I am coming to the end of this particular lecture. In the next lecture I will take the next topic of the chapter. Till then, thank you, take care.